So welcome to Jumpstart workshop number 6. As it names is Jumpstart, which means it's a plan to kick you to implement rather than to just talk theory. So we are in 6. So if you haven't attended past ones, always feel free, register. The contents are uploaded as we speak. So all 5 are in the portal. So you could always, if you are already a Scribble user, go to the library, and in Jumpstart workshops, you will find the first 5 waiting for you, and capture planning will get in the next 24 hours as well. So welcome to capture planning Jumpstart workshops. There's only one that we'll be doing for capture, and then we'll be moving into bid governance and review management, gradually move into bid team leadership. Then we'll also touch few other elements. The reason, as I already mentioned, to have this sort of wide thing starting from sales to proposals to capture to bid team leadership and to marketing and finally planning for LinkedIn is because the new normal environment requires us to do different things. So we should be in a position to take up whatever the role that's been thrown at us or whatever the projects that's been thrown at us. So that's the most important thing there. So that's the reason why we have structured it. You would also noted that the template on the slides is slightly different to what we used to do for the first 5. It's because I am using our Capture Practitioner course material. Yes, the Capture Practitioner course material and the Practitioner course material is all ready, and it's been trialed by a few people. So it will go live next week. So if you are intending to do Practitioner, both Practitioner and Capture Practitioner, it will go live next week, so that you could also do that in parallel. So, okay, that sound is not great. So let me stop my emails. And we'll go back to the screen. Yeah. Sorry about that. There is always something that happens. Okay, hopefully you can still see my screen. Can you still see my screen? Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, going back, I just thought I will straight away touch the Capture Practitioner syllabus. The Capture Practitioner will have around 20 modules, predominantly from the BOK. Around 10 modules are similar to what we used to do on Foundation, but other 10 are slightly different. So we will be covering 3 of those modules part of this capture planning. So I also used some of the other elements inside the slides. So it will kind of give you a feel for it. It's 100% theory, as I mentioned, if you're used to the Jumpstart workshops. It's all points to remember. It's nothing to do with the concepts and stuff. We all know what we need to do, but this is just a reminder tool for you to do this. So that's how we are going to continue. We'll be following the same format, and we'll be touching these 3 parts, part of the syllabus. So if you are interested, the course will go live next week. But for now, this is the content. According to APMP, this is what they believe capture syllabus should look like. Having spoken to over 25 senior leaders, including the founding fathers of APMP in the past 1.5 months now through a podcast, capture still is a very kind, even though it's been used as a term for the past 15 odd years, if you ask people to define what's capture, what a capture manager does, it's still very vague. So with that thought process, approach this, because whatever that we are going to cover in capture is more or less what the body of knowledge and what APMP tells its capture, and the application of capture differs from company to company. And I'm sure if you are listening to this from the States, you might have capture managers, but if you are listening it from UK, capture manager as a term is very new. We don't have capture managers in UK. So India, not sure about it. So some of you can type a message and tell us there is a capture manager available in the geography as well. But either way, this is an evolving role. It's not as defined as a proposal manager or a big manager type of a role. So that's what I just want to say even before we start. So what is capture planning? As I mentioned, this will be slightly theory, and from there, I haven't seen it in India. Okay, thank you, Pawan. So it's welcome as well. So primarily, capture planning happens before the bid. So this, you can call it as a strategy. Simply call it as a strategy. You are having hundreds of opportunities in the pipeline, and your board or the sales director and the board needs to decide what are the key opportunities that we are going for this year, and why are we choosing the must-win opportunity? So Capture plays that design strategy on evaluating the available opportunity and your business environment to find out, okay, what are the strategy that we need to implement to capture and win the specific opportunities. So you might decide a sector, or you might decide an opportunity, or you might decide a geography. It entirely depends, and you're going to strategize everything around it. And in general terms, capture planning is more or less framing the strategy even before understanding your own competitive position in that marketplace, in your chosen bid, before you even bid for the opportunity. It's actually for strategic projects, it's being used heavily, and regulated projects where if you are working on the defense sector, telecom sector, even IT, infrastructure type of projects, it's prevalent in those elements because it's a $1 billion plus, $500 million plus opportunities. You invest on this. You are not expecting it to be done for a consultancy project of £100,000, where even a part-time proposal manager won't be given that time. So it's a very strategic activity. That's what I just want you to think for now. So the ultimate aim is you are ensuring that the customer prefers you more than any other company, even before you decide to bid, even before the proposal comes in your table. That's the most important thing. You are shaping it. If you're not shaping it, you're testing it out, sometimes even 1 year before the actual tender to position you forward. So it's a very, very strategic thing. And remember, this is not just for new business. This is not just for new business. This also forms part of your account plan. You have already won a $500 million, $1 billion tender, and that tender is going to come for renewal. Again, capture becomes part of your account plan, where you decide, okay, how am I going to retain this? Last time, these are the 3 competitors who came to the final round and they didn't get it and we got it. What will they do now? Will the customer still have the same sort of solution from us, or will they look for different? So again, capture planning is not just new business where you are just what we call a blue sky analysis. It's also applicable in your account plan as well. As I mentioned, we will be looking at 3 templates: a blank template, a filled up template, and an actual strategy deck that we put forward for one of the defense contract here on doing capture, because we specialize in capture in UK. So this is my favorite topic. So let's do this. So capture planning actually happens in unison with proposal planning. So on one end, this is, as I mentioned, it for strategic deal. Who will do the capture planning? We will touch it. But if the proposal manager and the bid manager focuses on running the proposal, the capture manager will more or less be your bid lead or a sales director who will be somewhat attached to the bid, but might be completely outside, who kind of manages the other 3 C's: your company, your competitor, and your customer to get it. So in some companies, capture manager is a dedicated role. Capture managers tend to be paid more than the proposal managers because of the strategic insights that they bring in as well. So again, it starts much before the actual tender, but it also continues over the tender process as well, so that they come out with these insights of, hey, you know what, things are changing, the dynamics are moving, etc. So straight away, we are entering the principle from, you would have seen if you have looked at the BOK, introducing business development lifecycle. This is the diagram. So predominantly, opportunity plan is the terminology that goes on hands with capture plan. And what they do here is you are actually taking yourself from an unknown position. You are decided to bid, but you really don't know what's happening, to a known position, to an improved position, to a favored position. You are a preferred bidder. So it's all about intelligence. It's all about strategizing your position, looking into different things from the price, from the other things. If you have listened to Randy Victor's podcast, which we launched last week, Randy, who's been considered as an authority in the capture cycle, even he tells capture is all about research. It's not about Excel. It's not about nice slides. It's about researching in and out about your own company, about your competitors, about your customer. It's 100%. So it's very interesting. If you don't listen, please do listen to that. And there is a next episode that's coming with Marina. Marina specializes in aerospace capture. So that's an interesting one as well. So you could apply a real life examples inside this in addition to what I'm sharing to you today. So yeah, so let's do that. So it's moving away from unknown position all the way to favored position. That cycle happens in its own time. Sometimes this happens in a month. Sometimes this might happen in 2 years. Sometimes it happens in 6 months. But it depends. But this happens in advance, even before your cycle comes up. What information are we collecting? We're collecting information about the customer. Why are they outsourcing? Who are the stakeholders? What are their hot buttons? And we are documenting it, and we're presenting this as, this is the reason we might have a chance for this bid, and we have to bid for this. So it's a bid no bid decision that also forms a basis for those things. Recent changes in company leadership, any legal actions or judgments, what have they said about the strategy reports? They are in financial mess, or they're looking for growth. The reason for that outsourcing is etc. Why? In 3 years' time, this is what all this information has been collected as intelligence about the customer, and it will be put forward. The next one is competition. Again, in your own cycle, who are the people? Bidder comparison matrix is something you might be familiar from your foundation. If you're not, there are bidder comparison templates inside Scribble, and there are bytes around it as well. So you can download it and you can get a feel for those things as well. So predominantly, you then decide there are 3 or 4 key competitors who are going to be working with us on this. And these are their success or their strengths, these are their weakness, and you try to document these things around the what and the why. Don't worry, when we look at the template, you will get a 100% understanding of what I'm talking here. So again, the way next terminology that we are looking at it is what we call a contact plan. Contact plan is, okay, now I know the customer, now I know the competitor. What are the touch points do I have with my customer so that I keep on refining it, right? So the touch points is even before the bid, can you speak to the customer to understand why they're doing what they're doing? Or inside the bid cycle, you are in a restricted procurement. What can you do about getting that competitor intelligence? Can you find somebody who has worked in the past with that company and bring them on board part of your bid team if they have much more interesting insights about the customer, so and the competitors, etc. So you just keep on refining your intelligence, and you create what you call a contact plan. In an actual scenario, I don't think anybody has a contact plan, but this is an ideal scenario. But the most important thing is you have to refine and improve your intelligence as you progress through the life cycle. That's the most important thing, because the customer's concerns, requirements, issues, hot buttons changes. Clearly 2 months ago, who would have thought coronavirus, COVID-19 would have costed, which means your intelligence February is completely outdated to if you are doing the tender in May. So the requirements, issues have changed. How are you on top of it? Their priorities have changed. The reason for their tenders might be changed. The requirements might be changing. So it keep on refining that and the other thing. So I strongly suggest having some level of intelligence, working around this intelligence for your company. It's a great career move, especially if you're looking to elevate yourself up in your company. Find reasons how your company gathers intelligence, how do they approach, how do they do big no big decisions, so that you could be part of it. So without going into details, this is the contact plan. Contact plan, how often do you meet your customer? What do you find out? Where are you meeting? How are you meeting, etc. We'll touch it part of the template, but for now, this is it. So proof points. Proof points are nothing but reference. Again, we are touching some terminology. So you can clearly see capture as a work stream is nothing but an addition of multiple stuff. So it should include the intelligence part, it should include the pricing part, it should include your own testimonials and references, which is the point that's mentioned here. So where have you done in the past? What was the price that was put forward? Your lessons learned, if you have done it, that forms the basis of your proof points. and you kind of collect all those information and come out with a slide or come out with an intelligence report saying that this is the reason why we need to do now, and this is the reason why we need to keep on doing it, because you might have bid and you might have changed your price, or your customer's requirement might be changing. You just keep on evaluating it. So opportunity plan, sudden terminology that's going to come and hit you. Opportunity plan is similar to capture plan. This goes hand on hand. If you do find somebody talking about opportunity planning, it's because that's the term they used. Opportunity planning is used. We use opportunity plan, or what we call a bid strategy, bid strategy document. That's what we call. People call us to do bid strategy document. If you tell them we are a capture organization or an opportunity planning organization, they'll be looking at us as blank. The terminology might differ, but the most important point is it's an intelligence thing. So who is actually going to do it? Normally, the capture person will inside your company will do it, or it normally passes into an external people like us, because we can benchmark the capability of the company to just say, hey, you know what, this is what you're good at, this is what you're not good at. It's most important to identify what's available in the public domain and gather the information in a usable format and present it to them and say, this is why you need to go for. So we are moving from unknown position to an improved position to a favored position. So this is where you decide, okay, can we put an opportunity manager? Your opportunity manager is nothing but your bid lead, who can focus on improving the win probability. Your opportunity manager cannot be your proposal manager, because you are not here to submit the tender. You are here to improve the win probability. Very different skill set. So, that's why the salespeople tend to take a role as opportunity managers in some companies. Yes. So you can't just keep on reinventing every single time. So it's preferable to have an organized approach that you can that you can have for the tender, an organized template. This is a template that we go for strategic bids, a capture template. This is how the governance needs to be done for a bid, no bid. You might have already have it in your company. Have a look. How is it being applied? What sort of information is being filled there? Use this as a reflective session to just go and dig those information and say, hey, this is how they're making it. So before we make the decision, our board requires these 5 information. Before we actually bid for this, this is the information that they need. Even before we submit a bid, this is information that they need. Again, capture planning goes hand on hand around it. So we're not going to go deeper on every single thing. You already touched some of the element. At some point, the capture as an intelligence document moves into your actual proposal things. If you've attended the executive summary, the value propositions, or the sales presentation, this is where it becomes interesting, because the intelligence that you have found about the company gets lifted into as a value proposition inside your proposal document. So 5 or 6 pointers, information on the customer, information on the competition, etc. It's there. If you are a proposal manager, you are busy writing response for those questions, which means you don't have the bandwidth, or you don't even have the, not just the time, but to actually have the resources to go for it. But if you prepare in advance, and this becomes basis for your thing, and simply in some companies, 1 or 2 graduates are allocated to do this ongoing research, so that he or she keeps on feeding the information about the opportunity planning. And that means that when you are building up your proposal plan, your opportunity plan also get updated regularly. So I already touched the decision points. Your decision point depends on the complexity of the opportunities and your company governance process. Nobody is going to expect you to do an opportunity plan for low value tenders. So understand what's the threshold in your company. Understand what governance happens, which we'll touch again in the revenue management next week. But understand at what level of governance happens at what point. Understand what level of information is being shared to the companies, to your board as well. So that's the core thing. And from then on, these things started to go hand on hand. So the information, as already I talked about, the intelligence get put forward into the proposal heading, or it could be put forward into section introduction, or it could be put forward into as a complete, forms the basis even for your executive summary, if you haven't done. So who are the people who are going to do this? As I mentioned, it could very well be a part-time person because this is not a full-time role if it's not that strategic, or it could be split by a person who has taken a couple of roles. As I mentioned, it could be a salesperson with an assistant, with the researcher can do that themselves, or a salesperson can do it themselves, depending on what it is, but it's never can be your proposal manager or your bid manager. It's whoever does it, they do that there. So prime, next one. So again, moving slightly deeper into the opportunity and capture team selection. As I mentioned, this is a very different beast. It requires a lot of research skills, and it also includes some element of Excel because you need to crunch the data in whatever the format that's being thrown at you. So we have a research team. For some reason, they thoroughly enjoy if you give them 5 PDF with 3 Excel templates with 4 Word documents and a slide, they will crunch everything and come out with something. It's very different skill set to have the ability of taking lots of information and to come out as insights. And that's what you need to get out of it. So people with management information, MBAs, research type of persons will be absolutely amazing on these roles. But in an ideal bid, this is what the team will be structured. Here we go. Your project or program manager is nothing but your operations person or your account person who will be taking the deal forward once you bid and win. So in some cases, if you do know, this is a must win for you, you recruit the person in advance and you just keep them there. Bid manager, as I mentioned, bid proposal opportunity capture manager could very well be your sales lead, or it could be a dedicated capture manager. But see in your company how the resources are allocated and for different types of projects. It will be very interesting, and that kind of gives you a feel for how your company approaches as well. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I think it's time to practically apply the principles that we agreed. So I'll just quickly through all these contents in. The important point of the capture is, because it's part of your bid no bid decision on an ongoing basis, which means you might have convinced them and you might have got the time and resources. You might have got £1 million budget to bid a £100 million opportunity, but at some point you need to still convince your board that this is still the right opportunity for you to do it. So that's why the intelligence is improved. Understand how the intelligence is being shared in your company. This is very interesting. There was a question, what was the kickoff meeting, what do we have? Ideally in the kickoff meeting, in a bid, strategic bid, your kickoff meeting, you already have your capture deck with you. This is all the information that we have collected about this tender. We know this tender is going to come. I don't know about what's inside this tender. I'm not even going to read about this, but this is what I know. This is the customer. This is the competitor, and this is where we are. Now, what's on the tender? Let's talk. Then the bid manager opens up and talks about this is the tender. This is how they're evaluating it. Okay, so the intelligence that we have got from the customer to what's been translated as a tender, this is what's happening. So ideally, that's what we do on a kickoff meeting. But sometimes the kickoff meeting is just a resource meeting. You just bring in all the people and give them a feel of bringing everything together. And that's where your bid lead or your capture lead tells them more about the opportunity, tells them all about the intelligence, but not necessarily there will be lots of information that on the intelligence, but he or she will be sharing the information about the customer and the competitor from what they know. It's not scientifically done, but whatever they know, they'll just share it and they'll just keep going from there. Capture is a strategic role, as I mentioned. So whoever involved on capture roles tend to work closely with the senior management, and the senior management tend to be very involved with the capture manager, mainly because it's a strategic deal. So it's important. The reason I put this slide forward is because there's so many cases where it's been you always find people telling, oh, this is amazing, we are doing great. But at some point when you lose a bid, this is where when they audit, the team knows that they have no chance of bidding this opportunity. And there are so many people who got into trouble because they weren't informing their management at the right time or the right time. So final point, the primary measure of your capture, as I mentioned, strategic. It's about the number and the value of the contracts that you're about to win. So that's how you're winning. So the capture will decide, okay, we got this intelligence, and this is how we are going to use that intelligence to do it. quick rattle through of the key pointers, because just to summarize the checklist, then we'll go into the live example so that you could get a feel for how it's being done. Okay, so opportunity plan. All you're doing that is document your work to inform your organization and facilitate reviews. That's the role of an opportunity plan. 3 key points. You have to do bespoke for every single opportunity, but your template could very well be the same. Front-loading proposal planning, which as already mentioned, it happens before the proposal and it happens throughout the proposal. So front-load it, work closely with the customer to, again, this we all know that. I've already mentioned this, keep completed opportunity plans for reuse, because once you fill this intelligence form, believe it or not, it will be reused again and again, especially if you operate in the same sector and you bid for same type of opportunities all the time. So we already talked about reusable materials, key information sheets. If you have used it, use it, or if you don't, go to Scribble, download it and see how far you could go from there. So key measure, see who's been allocated as a nominated person to deal this project and to update the opportunity and capture plan. If there is no other person, try to step up. That's what I would say. Try to step up and start to own that, or try to be part of the wider sales team and understand, hey, I can help you with doing research, opportunity capture planning, in addition to doing proposals, provided it doesn't jeopardize your actual submission skills. If you can do that, that's gold. The more you move up, the more it's better. So more and more it comes up. As I mentioned, there is no training here. There is a capture certification, as we know, and we have capture masterclass that comes up. But as it is, this is very bespoke skill. The important thing is you just need to appreciate the intelligence, convert management information into insights. So research skill is the main thing. Is there any specific training or courses? 100% there is not, but there are courses like this, certification like APMP, that's going to give you some pointers, some checklists, some reminders of, hey, do this, that's all. But rest of it is all in your hand. So that's it. So we'll move, after this, we'll be touching the masterclass element, but we'll come back to the end. So I'll stop there, and I know there might be some questions, but before we go, I'll just show you some of the real life examples. Yes. So the first one is a blank example that we are going to look. Can you see the screen at the moment? If you can you press 1, please? Thank you. So this is a strategic capture template. So you won't be able to fill all this information, but this is something that, as mentioned, it's a template. So let's go for. So what happens is it's 15 to 16 pages, 15 to 20 pages in general, and you start to do this capture manager, put a name. There's no capture manager, it becomes your bid leader. Business unit, where it is, date, what's the opportunity, who's the customer, what's the start date, what's the end date, what's the term, what's the margin we'll make in this tender, what's the high level overview of the customer. Tell me about when do you think this project is going to come and hit. Remember, this has happened before your actual tender. It might come and hit us in the next 3-4 months time, or it's happening next month. High level solution summary. You know what, we already have done this in the past, or this could be very similar. We can do this ourselves. We may be able to partner with this X company, or we might need to go and subcontract with this Y, but this is the reason why we need to go for competitive position. Simply write the competitors who you believe will be tendering for this. Pretty high level. Moving on. Customer profile. Customer, this is the customer. What's the pattern of their outsourcing? Have they outsourced a lot of services, or is this the first time they're doing? It's important, because the more you understand their trends, the more you will get a feel for, is this customer for long-term for us before you invest on them. Relationship with you and the current activity. Do we already run any small service for them, or do we know anybody who knows the customer or the customer's sponsor? Those things goes in there. What is the customer's budget, and is it approved? Again, this is business to business. In a tender document, in a government tender, federal tender, or even UK tender, or even US, yeah, any kind of tenders, normally the range of the project is normally given up for the tender. But even before, this is where you just understand what's the average range that the tender is going to go for, so that you can decide whether the project is on the right envelope. If it's $100 million, and if your sweet spot is $1 million to $5 million, then you straight away you can't. But you can always go and partner with somebody to become part of the $100 million. Now that's the probability that this will go into contract. Again, as you know, one of the metric that people use all the time in a bid no bid decision is what's the probability of happening, what's the probability of success. So those information goes in there, and the information about your organization, the contact plan that we touched, right? So who do you think is a process? Who do you think is a sponsor? Who are the other 3-4 guys who you may need to go for? LinkedIn gives you some information, and you will clearly see from the tenders in the past who's the procurement person. You can find it, add it, and the procurement person might be having a sponsor if it's a HR projects, HR transformation, IT transformation, or if it's, you name it, clinical transformation, whatever you're talking about, those are the guys who will be involved. So having those names in there will help. This is, again, it's a stakeholder matrix. If you know Miller-Hyman, Miller-Hyman has their own template. This is similar to it. So what the important thing is, okay, these are the 4 or 5 guys who are key stakeholders, the influencers. This is their role, this is their title, and this is how much they are. They'll have a say on this, and this is what they will be looking for. This is what they are, what they might be against us. And these are some of their influencing pattern. You will be surprised how much information your board knows, or how much information your bid leader knows already about these people. If they know the sector really well. If it's a new sector or if it's a new opportunity, this is going to be slightly tricky. But this is where you invest on people. This is where you would find, just before you decide to bid for an opportunity, you will find companies recruiting some advisors, recruiting somebody from the competition, recruiting someone even who worked in the customer, just to understand this information so that they have the right sort of touch points. So we already looked into this. So predominantly different types of procurement. Are they going to go for 5-year contract, 10-year contract? Is there any extension available with the contract? You know, are they famous for any onerous condition, which is like the KPIs, the key performance indicators, the penalties and stuff? Is there anything that they're payment by results? You name it, all the thing goes in there. So again, remember, these are intelligence. You can only fill what you know. I'm not expecting you, or we hardly fill up every single page, but these are, as I mentioned, are triggers for you to think, do I know all this information before I go for it? Or how much of the information am I actually blindly entering? So at the very worst, if you fill the page 1, which I told you, that itself is a good starting point. So then we already have touched it, the customer budget, best value approach, lower bidder approach. What that meant, as the name says, is do we think we can give them multiple options, and so that they could get a much more wider thing? For that to happen, they might need to put some investment, or we have to put some investment, which is called best value, or guys, let's go with the cheapest option, lower bidder. We lift what they already have got. We just change the branding. We just continue doing as it is. What do you think? Where do you think they will fit in? So our own take on that. Hot buttons, you know, very basic. From these are some of the pain points. And if you attended the exec summary value proposition, there are 4 different forms of how you can convert a hot button into a value proposition. Listen in and convert those hot buttons into those things. Background information is who said it and how relevant it is before we even decide to pitch that as a main solution. Then we add on into your position. This is where you summarize, okay, we know all these things about customer. Nobody is going to be honest here. If I'm really honest, it's like nobody's going to say, guys, we have no chance of winning this, but the competitor is going to be pretty good. Everybody is going to say, my company is amazing. My position is greater than the competitors. It's normally slightly biased, but if it comes external to companies like us, this is where benchmarking happens, and we say, which we'll touch now, which we'll touch as an example. You know what, this is the chance for you, this is the chance for others. We don't see you have to invest on this even before you consider for tendering, etc. So predominantly, you just keep adding the information about here, about your own thing. What should be your winning strategy? What should be your approach to the market? What should be the historical pricing patterns, etc. And you gradually move on and you try to fill the same for your competitors. Ideally 3, but if you don't, at least 1 or 2. So it's exactly the same information, then you add it. And finally, your bidder comparison matrix comes up here. You might be thinking, gosh, I don't do anything. I just go and bid. It's completely normal. That's normal. But this is ideal, right? And if you're looking for a $1 billion NASA, you know, gas, whatever you call it, projects to pump up going to Mars, you will put all these efforts, right? Because it's a huge project. And that's where things come up. It's the same. $1 billion customer service contract for the largest telecom company in the world. You would invest your time to understand. You won't blindly go for it, because everybody would like to go for the tender, and having that intelligence will help pick and choose the right battle where you're going to use it. But believe me, every time and effort you spend on this sort of effort, rather than to say, I have done 30 projects in this month, 1,000 projects this month, is going to be really, really helpful, especially in the new normal. Because these skills are very scarce, very, very scarce. So again, so we looked at the hot buttons, and then we gradually built up the win strategy. Okay, we will, again, you might have learned this if you have done the foundation exam. It's already there in the Scribble portal if you haven't. So the 4 key pointers: we will emphasize our strength by taking these actions. We will mitigate our weakness by taking these actions. We will highlight our competitor's weakness. We will downplay our competitor's strengths. 4 key ways, 4 box of how we approach it, and we kind of go from there. Then you riff the value proposition, and then you know who is the customer. You already know from the chart, who are we meeting, when are we meeting, how are we meeting, and you build it from there. So